What do we have? What is this today? What do we have? Well, we're kicking it old school, man. We've decided we're going to go back to the roots of our channel and we are going to create budget decks. So, what do we have? We have created 4 decks on a budget. Each of these decks can be had for under $100. And we're starting here with Reggie Gone Doom Eternal, brothers and sisters. What we got here, brothers and sisters and siblings, we've got Reggie Gone Doom Eternal. This is the black Stompy deck, and we're gonna get right into this. Let's check out our creature base, and we'll see pretty quickly why we call this budget deck Reggie Gone Doom Eternal. So we have Carrion Feeder, which is a 1 black, giving us a Carrion Feeder zombie. Sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. And in this slot here, you could have Blood-Soaked Champion, but for the sake of zombieism, we have Gravecrawler. For 1 black, you get Gravecrawler, who cannot block, but it is a 2/1. You may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. And chances are we're going to be controlling a zombie. So we're running 1, 2, 3, 4 Gravecrawlers. Do you remember when this card was really expensive? Not so much anymore. So a budget deck with a playset of Gravecrawlers. That brings me back to before Gravecrawler was expensive. We have Stitcher's Supplier here, a card that I was really happy to see a reprint of. I played this in a lot of Commander, nice Golgari Commander deck. And Stitcher's Supplier is just great. So when Stitcher's Supplier for 1 black enters the battlefield or dies, we mill 3 cards. And why is that good for Reggie Gone? You're going to find out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 Stitcher's Supplier. And I'd like to give a shout out to Saffron Olive. A deck Saffron Olive did inspired this deck. So that is where the roots of Reggie Gone comes from. So Reggie Gone came from the idea of using Reggie and Egon, as you'll see in a second here. So Dautai Voidwalker. This is a new addition to this deck, post Modern Horizons 2. So our Dautai Voidwalker really needs no introduction. For 2 black, we get a 3/2 with Shadow. So that is amazing. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it without a void counter on it. You can tap and sacrifice Dautai Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. And oh boy, so nice, so nice. We love that, because if you're playing against, say, like a burn deck, we can burn our own opponent. It's like a mini Ragavan in black, to a degree, where you, rather than getting that treasure token, you're just getting that 1 spell. However, playing against like Burn, a lightning bolt at the right time can make or break a game. We have Gifted Aetherborn, another great black stompy creature, if you will. A 2 black mana for a death touch and lifelink. It's a 2/3. So this is great to give us that lifelink. 1, 2, a 3 we run in the main deck. Reggie Gone Doom Eternal. Look at that zombie dinosaur. Now that's a zombie, sir. Sir, that is a zombie. So we have Reggie here, Rotting Reggie, the zombie dinosaur. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card. And that's okay, because if we have things like our Gravecrawler or even Blood-Soaked Champion, we can play those out of our graveyard. So at the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card. That's just fine. We don't have to exile Reggie when our hand is emptied. So if we don't have a card, we're just top decking anyways. So that's not necessarily a problem, because we have a 7/6 dinosaur on the board. The only thing about Reggie is he is a little sensitive, because being a 3 mana cost can be targeted by cheap removal sometimes. But that's why, not being legendary, we have 4 Reggies. Now, here's our legendary Egon. My favorite of the Ghostbusters, if people know Egon Spangler. Egon Spangler, God of Death. Death Touch, legendary creature, 2 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. From a graveyard. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine this card. This would be like the best black commander in the world, right? So 2 and 2 and a black, let's say black commander, death touch 6/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from a graveyard. Just imagine. They'd never do that. That'd be terrible. You know what? I'd hate that card. I don't even think I'd play that. Evil. Anyways, that's what we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 Egons. Because we want Egon as soon as possible. We want to be dropping these turn 3. And imagine if we could run like a dark ritual in here. How you get? Oh man, I don't even want to think about it, brothers. All right, we got Fatal Push here. For 1 black, of course, we're going to destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. Revolt. Destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less. Instead, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So definitely going to be sacrificing to pump up our carrion. What is that thing? The carrion feeder. Yes, that's right. The carrion a feeder. So Fatal Push. This is a card I love. Just that removal right here. Getting rid of a monkey here is just fine. Got Revolt, so we can sacrifice something 4 or less. That's going to cover our elementals. Getting rid of those is very good. 1, 2, 3 Fatal Pushes. And here we get into an interesting part of the deck. And this is why this deck, I've found, can go against heavier decks, because of the buttholeness of it. And I don't necessarily like this nature of the deck, but it's necessary. We have Duress. We're running 2 of these. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. And we're running 1, 2 Duresses. So that's a butthole card in addition to another butthole card I'll show you after I show you Unearth. So for 1 black, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So with Stitcher's Supplier, when we mill cards early on, let's say turn 1, we play Stitcher's Supplier for 1 black. We mill cards. Let's say Reggie's in there, okay? So on turn 2, we play another land. Let's say you have Reggie in there. You unearth Reggie. Turn 3, you're going to have a Reggie ready to react. So that's a strong suit in a budget, budget modern. That's going to be a heavy hitting creature turn 3, a 7/6, ready to go. Running 1, 2, 3 Unearth. So here's Thoughtseize. Now this is an expensive card in the deck, and this is where a lot of the budget went to keep this under $100. So Thoughtseize. I picked these up for about $10 a piece, so really good deal. 1 black, target player reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. You lose 2 life. So we lose life, but it's more specific than Duress. So we get to do a little more with this, although we do lose life, so there is that trade-off. But 1, 2, 3, 4 Thoughtseize. And these can be sideboarded too, as you'll see when I introduce the sideboard. So Demonic Embrace. Now this is our finisher right here. We can cast this out of the graveyard for 3, and then we pay 3 life. So you can cast Demonic Embrace from your graveyard by paying 3 life and discarding a card in addition to paying its other mana costs. So Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+1, has flying, and is a demon in addition to its other types. So any creature we put this on is going to be a heavy hitter for us in this deck, including Carrion Feeder. For example, a couple Carrion Feeders won the game out for me by utilizing this. So I was running the Carrion Feeder, and I kept sacking and bringing back. It was like turn 6. Sacking and bringing back my Gravecrawler. And I did that a couple times, and I had a big old 6/6 and then finished out there. Or not a 6/6, whatever. It's +3/+1. So it was like a 7/5, I think is what it was. 6/4 maybe. But anywho, I digress, as I'm so wont to do, right? All right, I can't get our sideboard mixed. Some slippery cards here, man. Come on now. All right, anyways. So we're running 4 Demonic Embraces. Now let's just show the land base real quick. We have Castle Lochthwain here. Castle Lochthwain enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp. We're going to be controlling swamps. Tap, add a black. For 1 and 2 black and tap cast a lock, draw a card, then lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. So this is very good for us. If we have mana up, we can do this, draw our card, and because of Reggie gone and his nature, with that discard card, this is going to be very useful if the game gets grindy, which this deck pushes grindy games. So let's get through that. 1, 2, 3, Castle Lockthwins. So just like with Dao-Tai Voidwalker, some grief would be great in here, but this deck is made to be under like $100. So that's why we've pushed our budget so close as we can get it. But I'm honestly not a fan of those elemental cards anyways. However, like grief in this deck, if you're going to run that direction, you might as well go Rakdos Scam, which is a deck I think is like not the... I mean, it's a great deck, but having played it and played against it, and just, I don't think it's very interesting. I don't think it's a very fun deck to play. I certainly don't think it's... I think Rakdos Scam is more fun to play against than to play, if that makes sense. Maybe people will disagree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 lands with the Lockthwains. And one of our lands is Silent Clearing. Pay 1 life, add a white or a black, pay a mana, tap, sacrifice Silent Clearing, draw a card. So that's just in there to get that. And the rest is just a bunch of nice, pretty swamps. So there is our budget deck. Now we're going to show our sideboard. And we'll explain that a little bit. We'll talk about the deck a little more. And at about 15 minutes, I think we'll sign off. And I hope you guys didn't miss me too much while I had a little hiatus. I was quite busy. And I'm going to be back in the saddle. And I played a lot of paper Magic. I played these decks up the wazoo, to be honest. So that's what I've been doing. I can't make these videos just on what I think is a cool deck and stuff. I got to test them. So it takes time to get cards, to make plans for things, to budget, do it all. So that's what we like to do. We don't just like to put random things out, you know. We like well thought out decks, and we get input from and use the one good thing. If you use the best decks in the game format and look at those and how they work, look at the dynamics of like Rakdos Scam, for instance. How it can, you know, it scams people's win cons. It's a wonderful play style to think about, which is why Thoughtseize, Rakdos Scam made me think Thoughtseize in the main deck is such a good thing. But anyways, again, I digress. So Smuggler's Copter is a 2-mana artifact. It's a 3/3 artifact vehicle with a crew cost of 1, which is really good for a 3/3 for 2 mana. So flying, whenever Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. 1, 2, 3. We're running 3 of those, and we can sideboard those out if we want more card draw in the deck. And you could sideboard these out for honestly like Thoughtseize if you wanted to go like more of like an aggro approach. I would not, you know, honestly I'd probably take out like 1 Thoughtseize and then the 2 Duresses for these. And that's just to keep more card draw, keep your deck moving, keep your graveyard hand full. We have Damping Spear. Running 2 of these, so this 2-mana artifact, what does it do? It does things that aren't good. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces 1 colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. So if we're running Reggie, and if our hand is light, and we're just drawing cards off the top, maybe we'll have 1 card to cast each turn. This is ideal to slow down decks that want to be like a prowess deck, like decks I like to play. So it's good to make decks that aren't necessarily what you like to play, because you can use your knowledge of like a faster deck about what would jam up my play style. And what I did with this deck was kind of create a deck that would jam up my play style and some of the best decks I run, which are not budget decks. So running 2 Damping Spear. We have Soul Guide Lantern. Pretty specific here, more card draw. So for 1 mana, we get Soul Guide Lantern. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. tap and sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern to exile each opponent's graveyard. That's pretty brutal. So for 1, we tap it, sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern, we have card draw. We're running 2 of those. For some more removal in black, we have Go for the Throat. For 1 and a black, destroy target non-artifact creature. So just a 2-mana destruction spell. No stipulation other than it's a non-artifact creature. We're running 2 Go for the Throats. We have Feed the Swarm. It's a more targeted removal. So for 1 and a black, we destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. So this is going to be perfect for specific things we come against, like enchantment decks. Got 2 Feed the Swarms for some more targeted removal. Target creature, so an indestructible creature. Any creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. That's going to do some damage to our elementals right there. So that's definitely an elemental killer. Blood Chief's Thirst. It's got that kicker, kind of a big kicker. So it'd be 4 mana. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. So we can remove a planeswalker. That's important because in the current meta, you're seeing a lot of planeswalker activity. And that planeswalker removal is pretty important. In fact, I'm thinking of maybe like adding like a bone shards to get just some more like of that targeted planeswalker removal too. But 2 Blood Chief's Thirst at the moment, and that's our sideboard. And I gotta say, this deck is really fun to play. It's fun to play against, and it's fun to play. So I want to say about $86. So there is a little wiggle room, but at the end of the day, I didn't want to just push it up to 100 because I could. With the Dao-Tai Voidwalker, yeah. Could you add 1 more? Sure. But he's not a zombie. He's a Dao-Ti or a Dao-Thai or whatever that is. He's one of those. So not a zombie, so he's not really helping our zombie tribal too much. Or semi-pseudo-tribal. But in any case, give this deck a try. If you wanted to make a non-budget version, I'd go ahead and tell you right now you could add Orcish Bowmasters. You could add Grief. Trying to think of an Adnaz. Fill your grave. Nah, I don't know. I think, yeah. I don't know why you'd want to make this like non-super budget, because that's what's kind of cool about it. But if you wanted to make it like fully optimized, you of course could I'd say just add red and make it like a full-on like Rakdos scam. I almost shuffled my sideboard in there. You see that? But I didn't. Look at that. Oh man. Oh, I did. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. We're at like 17 minutes. So that's the deck. Maybe we will show some goldfishing with it. I just can't have too much fun goldfishing like I used to when we were doing those storm decks. You know what I mean? But we'll get some more of these videos out because guess what? That's not the only budget deck we did. We listened to the people. We listened to you, Jeffrey, particularly. So we're going to be showing more of these budget decks. We have a mono green Stompy to go with Reggie gone here. The black Stompy, if you will. Thanks for joining me, and we'll be back to it before long. So, there it is.